Hi, I'm Nick from Scale Pilot. So, if you're a coaching business or an info business and you've always been wondering what should be your spend on Meta ads, to be frankly honest, nobody can hand you that number. You almost always calculate it. So, I've managed over seven figures in ads and generated over hundreds of thousands of dollars for coaching and info products. Now, I've never picked a budget once in my entire operation by guessing. So what happens is when you spend too little, the algorithm never learns who your buyers is. And if you spend more than you can afford, then you shut it off right before it works. So now I'm going to break down in this video how you can find your budget, and I'm going to show you one number that's really important before you can even go in and find your actual budget. Now, let's start. First thing I want you to understand is that you're asking the wrong question. You're asking the wrong question over here. You're asking the wrong question. How much should I spend on Meta ads? To be frankly honest, again, there's no answer to that. It's like asking me how much gas should I put when you're not telling me or we don't know what kind of car you drive, right? So And if if there's anyone like a brokey coach that says, "Oh, you can earn like 4K, 5K," then they're just guessing your business. They don't know about your business operations, how you perform, right? So you don't let them guess about your business. Be smart about it, calculate it on your own. And now I'm going to show you how to calculate your ad spend with your own numbers, not fabricated, not made up. It's your own numbers, right? Now, start with a revenue you want. So let me explain. So let's say you're doing 20K, 30K, or like 60K, 70K. I don't know. But that's up to you, right? That's your numbers. And let's say you want to get to 100K, which is where 100K is where most coaches want to be, or that's their ceiling for now, before actually going and scaling really hard, right? Now, so in this context, in this example, I'm going to say, let's say your offer is 6K and your average order value is 4.5K, right? So why do you say 4.5K instead of 6K? Before I actually start calculating any number, I want you to understand what your true AOV is before we even do any maths or like find your actual budget. Because AOV is not what your sales is worth. Your sales is worth 6K, but when you collect your payment over the duration of 30 days, it goes down to 4.5K because you know some of them are on payment plans or like they cannot afford upfront, right? So now your AOV is 4.5K and 100K is your goal, right? Now you divide 100K with 4.5K, which gives you around 22 customers. Okay, here's the good part though. So how you're going to treat this is your real target, your real goal is 22 humans saying yes this month. Don't think it as like, oh, okay, my goal today or this month is 100K revenue. No, you have to think it in a way where like, okay, I need 22 people to buy my stuff, 22 real people, then I'm going to get to 100K. If it's like 300K, 400K, then the number of customers or human who are saying yes will also gradually increase, right? Now, so again, this month it's not 100K. Okay, in this instance, let's say your close rate is what, 25%? So you would need 88 calls, right? And your show rate is 60%, which means you need 147 calls. And this is the magical number that I was talking about. So what's your cost per qualified call? Not your cost per call. So it's 150. Let's say it's 150, right? And Most of you don't have this. All of you make it. None of them have it. You know why? Because no one actually looks at their number. They're doing guesswork. That's not how you run a business, right? Would your customer work with you or like buy your stuff if they had to guess? No, right? You do provide some kind of guarantee or like some kind of proof. So you need the most accurate number that reflects how much you can scale or how much you need to scale. And this is the holy grail or the angel number, if you will. Angel number. This is going to save your SEO. Okay, so you multiply this by number of calls needed this month and with your cost per qualified book calls. And if you do a quick math, it's going to give you 147 times 150, which is close to 22K. So this is your budget. Okay, that's really simple, right? But now, this is where people can easily mess it up if you don't actually implement this in the right way. Everyone knows their cost per lead, everyone knows their close rate, everyone knows their book rate, show up rate, but almost no one knows what their cost per book call is or qualified book call is. Now, they never like actually go down backwards into their funnel, find out what the actual cost per a qualified lead is. They invent it or like they just guess it. Why is this number that I'm yapping about or talking about is so important? Why is it so important? So let me clarify. Before I actually even talk about the number, let me drill this down your head. So your ad spend does not buy you any revenue. It buys you booked calls. You know that. Or if you think like, oh, if I run ads, I'm magically gonna make this much money. Yeah. But your first optimization or your first motive is to get more booked calls, not more customers, because more booked calls, which are qualified, is eventually going to get you more customers. So, as you know, revenue only happens after the call once you have, which you have already paid for through ads. Now, let's talk about qualified leads. So, is every lead qualified? No. What is lead, first of all? Lead is just a contact info. You just think like, oh, they might buy or they might not buy. So it's not sure. So you would always want to qualify them before you actually put them in your calendar or your slot. So how do you do that? I mean, if you know any marketing funnels, you obviously would ask few type form questions, type form to financially qualify them. And let me really be honest with you. Cheap leads give you pretty numbers. Yeah, of course. They give you like 30 cost per lead. They give you 25. I've even seen low as like $8. So your cost per qualified call is what your real cost of buyers is. Now, the bigger you go, your perfect metrics always go down. Your CPL, or in this case, cost per qualified book calls, go down. Your ROAS goes down, right? Now, I'm going to explain this in an actual scenario of one of my clients where how we worked and found out his true numbers and helped him scale from 56K cash collected to 100K, almost 100K cash collected. Now, so he was a coach. So his basically offer was done for you program on how to start Amazon FBA business. So in this niche, right? Amazon FBA start your business niche, and his program was worth 8K. And again, yeah, so he was netting almost 50K cash collected. I'm not saying revenue because that's what he was getting upfront, cash collected, right? Now his ad spend was 10K, and his customer acquisition cost or CAC was around 1100. So again, everyone didn't go through like payment plans. Almost only 40% of them did. So his average AOV was around 6K. And like I said, 40% went in-house payment plan. And his CAC to LTV ratio was 1 is to 5.6. Really profitable numbers, right? Now, he wanted to go really bigger, ambitious guy. That's why he worked with us, right? And he's like, okay, let's do more. Let's bump up the budget. Let's go twice as hard as we did. Now, so after we 2x his budget, so what does it look like in math or in this case, right? So it went from 10K to 20K, and so his ROAS, it actually decreased. So it went from 5.6 to 4.8. Not a massive decrease, like not some dramatic uh, downfall to like write home about, but still, he got nervous. But when we actually look at his bank account, cash collected that month went from 56K to 96K. So you're telling me you get nervous for like dropping what, zero point 0.5 or zero point 0.1 ROAS, but you're actually netting almost 40K more cash in your bank. So that's what I tell all my clients or all the people who try to work with us or would want to work with us, that ROS, it's a trap. People, when you fall in love with your ROAS and you try to like hold it, you try to protect it. I don't know what you're trying to do, but still, that's keeping you really far from where you want to be, from where you want to grow. So don't cry over your ROAS, your pretty metrics. That's what we like to call your pretty metrics, right? And some of them even spend too low to like keep the ROAS pretty, keep it multiple high. And when you do that, you damn well know you're capping your business. So don't fall for the trap. Again, another math, quick, easy math. You guys probably are smarter, so you would know, but just in case, I'm explaining it again. So 10 is to 1 on 10K is 100K, right? The numbers look great, though. The pretty metric looks great. But on 5 is to 1 on 50K, it's like, what, to 50K, right? So it's L ratio and more money almost twice. Now, this is where Scale Pilot does different. So we not just only work into your funnels or do like basic marketing. We actually look into your business. And in this case scenario, for this coach, we found out that his break even or ceiling was $540, which means up until this point, he was so profitable, right? He would be printing money. And in this case, he was spending around $112 per call, which initially from his 96 or $98. It did increase. However, we can easily say that he could have paid like what, almost 3 times more money, and he would even still print, right? Because up until 540, whatever amount he's enduring, he can easily get more customers and end up being profitable. Yeah, mandems, they can be still be printing and use this machine gun to print really hard. Now, what is the moral of the story? If you actually truly want to know what your budget is, first, I want you to find out what each customer is worth, a qualified customer is worth, right? And then find your ceiling, like how we did here, which was $540. Then don't really, I'm not saying care, but don't cry over your pretty metrics, your ROAS, right? It's part of the game. When you scale, it's obviously going to go down. But on the flip side, your profits go up. In conclusion, what I would like to say is you have to know your numbers and you have to, first of all, stop guessing. And from the strategy or the breakdown that I just did, you can obviously implement it and find your own budget. So book a call below and we'll find your numbers, your ceiling, and plan to scale straight as it is. Thank you. See you next video.